So this week we're moving from Cheap Architect, which is a way to render three-dimensional ideas, to SketchUp. So although Cheap Architect was created, years before SketchUp, SketchUp is really the industry standard. So having a general understanding and knowledge of SketchUp will really help you as you move into professional practice. So in this class, as you know, we've had 2 or 3 weeks on these major subjects, and it'll be the same for SketchUp. You'll have 2 weeks to complete an assignment. If you find that SketchUp interests you, then you're going to want to register for INT 251, SketchUp for Interior Design. It's typically offered both semesters, either at Phoenix College or Scottsdale. So if you find that SketchUp is appealing to you, and you want to learn more about it, then go ahead and sign up for the class. Again, this is an introduction, but like most things that we've done in this class, it's just surprising how much we can do in 2 or 3 weeks' time. So it'll be the same for SketchUp. So today is part 1, a basic introduction to SketchUp. The instructions are posted online, and we're going to be looking at approximately pages 1 through 7. Next week, we will go into how to render or to add texture, material, and patterns and blocks to the drawing. So I found SketchUp to be extremely helpful to help me generate ideas, sometimes define or refine design ideas, and I use it a lot for custom design. So if you're working in commercial design or hospitality, we as an interior designers really have the opportunity to do a lot of custom design work. And so I find that it's wonderful to create some of these blocks and works in SketchUp. Whether you continue on and draw the entire interior in SketchUp, or whether you take some of the blocks that you make in SketchUp and move them to Cheap Architect, that's really up to you. Your final project, which we'll be working on in a few weeks, asks you to work with everything that we've learned so far, to work in SketchUp, to work in Cheap Architect, and to work in Photoshop. So let's get started and talk about SketchUp. If you can see my screen, I am in the virtual lab. So unlike the other programs that we've worked on throughout the semester, SketchUp currently isn't offering a version free to students. However, the student version, which is the same as our SketchUp Pro, is available to students for $55 a year. That is an exceptional value, and you will use it. So if you want it on your home computer, I have the link. You can go to sketchup.com, plans and pricing, where you can download the program to your personal device. Or you can do what I'm doing. I'm using the virtual lab. I'm using the virtual lab because I'm actually finding it quite easy now that I'm getting a little more accustomed to it. Plus, I just want to see if there's any kinks because I know that my students are out there using it. So today's demonstration, I am working in the virtual lab. So that's what you're looking at on the screen. All right, so like many of the programs that we've worked with this semester, remember in Chief Architect, we had to call out if we wanted it to be interiors or residential architecture. And interiors was in inches. So you have in SketchUp, you still have the ability to practice in inches, or you can work in feet and inches. So I'm going to go ahead and have you open up the file in feet and inches. So to begin, we're going to look at the SketchUp interface. That the screen or the interface that we'll be working with. So we're on page 1 and we're going to be moving to page 2. Here you see when you open it up, and this will appear every time you open up through the virtual lab. You will not see this if you've downloaded the software to your personal device. So Phoenix College has purchased the rights to all of these ray tracing or photorealism from Podium. So that's what you're looking at here. So if you've downloaded SketchUp to your personal device, you will not see those there. Okay, so that was something up there called plugins, and that's something that the college has purchased for your use. You can go ahead and X out of those for now, and we'll take a look more at those next week. So the interface. Like most programs, we have a toolbar located, a menu bar located at the top of the screen. So that horizontal bar, which has things like File, where you can save and open and exit. So when you want to exit the program, and maybe in the virtual lab it's a little bit confusing, at least for Cory it is, because I have like 100 tabs open everywhere. So I've been trying to get in the habit of just going to the SketchUp drop-down File and exit from there. But things like File, Open, Save, Print, and then like in Chief Architect, importing, meaning bringing things into your drawing, and exporting, sending things out. So those are under File. Under Edit, this is, we'll be using this today for a couple of tools. One is Delete Guides. So we're going to be able to draw in little guides that we can then trace. But once you trace them, you don't need those guides there anymore. So that's where we're going to delete and remove the guides. When you begin building your own custom furniture and blocks, you're going to want to make things as a group or as a component. And so those are under the Edit tool. View is how to alter how your model looks. So things like shadows, base styles, those are under View. So notice right now we have your axes and your guides checked. So that here are our axes, blue, green, and red. And I'm just going over kind of where all these are. And then we'll go over these one by one. So don't feel like you have to pause right now. This is just a quick overview. Notice that shadows is not checked. So shadows, just like in Chief Architect, where we want to have sunshine and shadows, well, that makes the drawing look a lot more photorealistic, but it also takes a lot of space and it slows down the program. So I usually don't check shadows until the very end of the drawing process. We have a camera where we can zoom extents. We can make the window larger or small. We're going to be able to orbit and pan around our drawing, and we'll go over that, just like we did in Chief Architect. So you'll be able to move around the drawing. So for example, here's the pan tool. We'll be able to orbit and move around the drawing. You'll also be introduced to different drawing tools like lines, rectangles, and squares. So here we have rectangles, circles, polygons. So what's different a little bit about this is more of a drawing software, where Chief Architect was more of a click on an icon, you know, and place it into your drawing. So we're doing a little more drawing in SketchUp, but that's what makes it so nice to do some custom work. So in this week's, and maybe this week, definitely next week, we'll be working with your windows and the different default trays for materials and drawing styles and scenes and things like that. And how you can directly go to 3D Warehouse and bring in all those nice furniture blocks. So those are going to be right there. Extensions are those plugins or those additional things, the extensions that we've brought into our program, such as Podium and V-Ray. So that's what you saw when I first entered the drawing. Those are all those extensions, things that we've added to SketchUp. And then you have help where you can contact them, ask a quick question, sign in, etc. under help. So I'm moving to the middle of page 2 of the instructions now. Under the module, I went quickly over the interface. Under the module, I went ahead and included the first 3 chapters of a sketchbook textbook. So that's a great place that you can go and read a little more about the beginnings of SketchUp and working with SketchUp. So that's there for your use. But most students will find that SketchUp, there are blog sites and SketchUp sites with just almost endless information about, little tricks and stuff of the trade. So if you're a reader, go ahead and read the chapter. If you like to just watch a video, then you're going to want to Google search when you have questions. All right, so let's just look at the modeling window. So here is where we're going to make our model. Like Chief Architect, SketchUp has a select tool. So that's that arrow where you can select the different icons. Every version of SketchUp, as long as I've been using SketchUp, includes a scale figure. For our version for 2020, we have a woman. She has some nice flared jeans on, her bag, with her red jacket. So this is what's the scale figure. Every time they change the version, they change the figure, and I think that's kind of fun. I just every version, I'm like, ooh, who did they pick this time? But the purpose of the scale figure is to help gauge size. So we're going to draw according to architectural scale because we're interior designers. So we're going to draw, we're going to make sure our sofas are 3 feet deep by, 6 to 7 feet long. We're going to keep with scale and proportions. Know that there are many different professions that use SketchUp. So for example, someone might be designing a wedding cake, and that wedding cake wasn't necessarily drawn to scale. And so you can find that wedding cake maybe in the 3D Warehouse, and you can bring it into this drawing, and all of a sudden it's like 5 stories tall. And you can tell that quickly because of our figure. Probably the most challenging part, at least for me, working with SketchUp, is making sure that you keep all of the planes on the appropriate axes, and you don't let those get askew. So SketchUp has 3 axes. The height is represented in blue. The lengths and depth showing the ground plane is in red and green. And when we start to draw, we need to make sure that we stay on these specific planes. And I'll show you a little bit of how that works and some of the challenges it faces when, for example, if you're drawing a wall and all of a sudden your wall isn't nice and plumb, the challenges that go along with this. So this is where I feel that Chief Architect is easier to work with in terms of quickly drawing a room. But then I think you'll see the benefits of SketchUp in terms of how custom you can get with your drawing. In the lower right-hand corner, there's going to be a measuring box. So on the next page, we're going to start drawing a little box that's going to represent our room. So we can actually place in the measurements here. It's going to be something like 7 feet, 10. You don't have to put inches in, but you do have to put feet. 7 feet, you can put 10 inches, comma, by 10. And it's going to start doing the measurements for you. So we're going to do that in a quick page. But for now, I just wanted to show you where the measurement bar is. So Carmen, and for those of you who are listening, I know that you've taken AutoCAD. And in AutoCAD, when you draw a shape, you do put in its measurements. So you are learning a lot this semester, and you know, hopefully it is an overview, and if you have the quest or kind of the desire to learn more, again, Chief Architect, Kitchen and Bath, SketchUp INT 251, and gosh, we probably need another AutoCAD class because there's always so much to learn with AutoCAD. So on the bottom of page 2, we're going to begin drawing. So in earlier versions, like in Chief Architect and like in AutoCAD, there was layers. So right now, the drawing the drawing space is actually embedded into the software. So in 2020, there is no layers up here, and that kind of confused me at first, but it's new. They changed it for this recent version. All right, so first tool to learn about is the drawing tools and the select tools. So as in Chief Architect, the select tool, I call it the pointer, right? The pointer is the arrow once again. Every action, I'm on the bottom of page 2, every action can be once reversed with the undo function. So I'm going to quickly draw a rectangle. And like so many of the softwares before, we can undo a command. So here in SketchUp, it's Edit, Undo Rectangle. So there's that kind of backspace command. So this is what gets me excited as an interior designer is once I got over the hump, I guess technology hump, you know, a lot of things repeat themselves within the different softwares and in different suppliers and manufacturers. So some of these things are very similar to what we've looked at. All right, so the first thing we're going to do on page 3 is introduce you to the rectangle tool. All right. All right, I wanted to show you how to get this large toolbar set if you haven't had it already. So to do that, I went to Tools, or I went to View, Toolbars, and I checked Large Tool Set. So now you have your tools going across horizontally, and you have an even larger tool set on the left. Now, I could have found all of these things under the drop down, right? But sometimes I think it's just nice to have those over there. All right. So on page 3, being introduced to the rectangle tool. So use the select tool, and then you can select rectangle. So rectangle is located now on our large tool set, or it could have been located in the drop down as well. So you're going to select the shape that you want, and you're going to bring it into your drawing. And you're going to click and drag. And here's the key for those of you who are listening. Click, drag, but don't click down on the mouse again, because we're going to go ahead and put in the measurement. So I'll be very clear of what I'm doing. I'm clicking, I'm dragging on an angle, and I'm not clicking again. And you can see in the lower right-hand corner, I can't click on it because I'll mess it up, but in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see dimensions. And so I'm going to click in 40 with the foot symbol, comma, 30 feet. And then I'm going to hit enter. So now I've created a 30-foot by 40-foot rectangle. And this is going to represent the plane of the floor. There's a note in the middle of page 3. So we're going to be applying material. So we're eventually going to be applying some marble here or some hardwood floors. There happens to be a right and wrong side of the plane surfaces. And the right side is represented by white. So I'm just going to go like this. So here you're looking down at the floor, basically. And I'm going to right click on this and say reverse faces. And you're going to notice that it either goes white or it already is white. So I'm going to reverse the face. And now you can see that it's white. So in the middle of page 3, if you're following along in the instructions, just put a little star by that, because there is a correct side, and that correct side is where we want to add the materials. The next thing we're going to do is work with this tool here called the push-pull tool. So select the push-pull icon. You're then going to click on the surface that you want to either push, which means push inward, or pull outward. And so in this example, we're going to click on the surface of the rectangle. And then we're going to pull up on the rectangle. We're going to actually start dragging this rectangle up. And what I want you to do is I want you not to, so there it's, you can see the little dots that it's highlighted. I want you to click and then pull up. But I don't want you to click again because we need to put the measurement in. 10 feet, enter. So now I have a 30-foot by 40-foot wide cube that's now 10 feet tall. You've watched me pan and orbit a little bit, and now this is your time to just practice moving around your drawing model. So in Chief Architect,
Oh, Cory, can you show me again how did you put the measurements for that?
Sure.
Where did you put the measurements?
So I'm going to edit and I'm going to undo the push and pull.
Okay.
All right, so select tool.
Okay.
So I'm going to select the push pull.
Okay.
And then I hover by the rectangle and I'm selecting the surface that I want to pull up. And you can see that it's selected when those dots appear.
Yes. Okay.
Then I click on the mouse and I pull up and I release my finger, but I don't click. And so I also don't have to click down here. So that's a little different than AutoCAD. So you don't have to click down here. And so you go 10 feet and then enter.
I get you. Okay.
Thank you for having me clarify. It's a little different.
Okay.
So the next thing I'll have you do is I'll have you just quickly look around the drawing. And so the hand tool is what's called a pan. And this allows you to move up vertically or horizontally. So click on the hand and then hold down on your, not the roller like in Chief Architect, but hold down on the left of your mouse. Keep it pressed down and you can move around that way. So up and down and horizontal. So that's the pan tool. Next to the pan tool is the orbit tool, and this really allows you to move around the drawing, like to go all the way around. So I'm just clicking, I'm holding down on my mouse, and then I'm releasing. You can zoom into your drawing by using the roller on your mouse, or you can zoom by using the zoom tools. So as in all the other softwares that we've worked with, we have our magnifying glass that represents zoom. Moving to page 4 of the instructions. So what this is going to be is this is going to be our room. You know, we're not giving the room wall thickness yet. We're not doing those kind of things because this is a quick study. But this box basically is going to represent our room. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete the front wall, and we're going to delete the top ceiling, essentially. And then once we're done putting all our materials and furniture in, we'll bring that back. So this is just very much like Chief Architect, where we had an invisible wall, but in SketchUp, we just delete it and we draw it back when we're done. So before we do that, I would like you to click on Views, Toolbars, and at this time, we've already added the large tool set. This time we're going to add Views at the bottom here. So what you've noticed by clicking Views, quickly we have an isometric view, a top view, a front view, and these different side views of our model. And this allows us, instead of having to pan and orbit all the time, this allows us to quickly move around the drawing. So for example, I'm going to go to, how about the top of my drawing. And I'm going to click and hit delete on my keyboard. And now I'm looking into my drawing. Now I'm going to go to the front view. And instead of having an invisible wall like in Chief Architect, we're going to click on that and hit delete on our keyboard. I can also hit delete for this line as well. So now you could kind of see that I have 1, 2, 3 walls, and I have a floor. And again, we'll put that ceiling back on, we'll put the wall back on. Well, we probably won't because we're just doing a drawing, but we'll definitely put the ceiling back on next week. But for now, this just makes it a little easier to work in. So as I've mentioned, there are right sides and wrong sides of the surface planes. And so I imagine an architect helped create this, software, someone did. So the interiors are not the right side by default. So we have to right click and reverse face, right click, reverse face. We've done the floor already. right click, reverse faces. So they still look dark, and that's just because of the shadowing tool, a little bit of kind of just to give that sense of shadow. So I'm going to just orbit around a little bit so that you can quickly see when I turn it around that it is white. Let's make sure this is white. Great. So now if I want to paint the wall or put wallpaper on the wall or shiplap or something, I have that white surface that will receive the material. Any questions, Carmen, or anyone who's online?
No.
Okay. So the next thing we will do is on the bottom of page 4 is just to introduce you to the tape measure tool. So the tape measure helps us to create guidelines. So the tape measure is just the icon just as it looks to be. And from the top view, or here I have it kind of in an angle view, but I'll go to the top view since that's what the instructions say. In the top view, I'm going to click on the corner. It does snap to that corner. And I'm going to click and drag. And I'm not going to click again. You can see right now I've dragged out 5 feet 7 and 5/16 inches. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and type in. I didn't click, and I'm not clicking on the measuring box. I'm just going to type in 6 feet, enter. And so now I've come out to a point 6 feet. So I have a guide point 6 feet from the wall. Next, I'm going to click on that guide point, click, drag, don't click again, and I'm going to type in 2 feet, enter. So now I'm 6 feet from the wall, and I'm coming 2 feet out into the room. So I don't know about you, but to me, this seems very intuitive. It's very much like drawing. So these are what's called, like in drawing, if you're taking drawing with me, or if you have, these are our construction lines. Now I'm going to draw 8 feet. So right now it says 9 feet, 10 and 5/16 inches. And I'm just going to do 8 feet and hit enter. And now just to make sure everything's plumb, I'm going to go 2 feet back to the wall. So this is where our fireplace is going to go. So our fireplace comes out from the wall, and then it comes 2 feet out in the room, and this is where I'm going to start having you build a fireplace. So you can do a couple of things. You can use the rectangle tool, or you can use the pencil tool. So for this exercise, I would normally just go click, drag, and draw a rectangle for you here like this. And then I would push it up 10 feet. But you can also do that with the pencil tool. So instead of grabbing a rectangle, you could have traced that with the pencil tool to create a rectangle. So again, I click, drag, and release. I'll do that again. I'll do it with the pencil. Click, 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 click. I've created a rectangle, escaped. Then I'm grabbing the push-pull tool. I'm hovering over my rectangle. You can see the dots that it's highlighted. I'm clicking, I'm releasing, and I'm pulling up, and I'm not going to click again. So I could match this edge it's on the edge, so I could click now, or I could have just told it to be 10 feet tall, which is what our ceiling height is, right, where our walls are. So there's a couple ways to do that. So now we have, if I'm looking straight on, we have what's going to be the beginnings of a fireplace. So a little different than Chief Architect, where you just click on a fireplace, but still not too difficult. Any questions? Next, I would like to, oh, did I hear anything, Carmen? You good?
No, I'm sorry, I don't have any questions.
Okay, no worries. I'm pleased that you're here. It gives me someone to talk to. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the openings of a box and then a rectangle that will pull out to make a mantle. So we're in our interior view, and we're going to use a tape measure to measure off an opening of the fireplace box. And so we want it to be 12 inches from each side and 30 inches above the floor. So again, we can take our tape measure. It's going to snap to that line. You can see it's snapping when it's green. I'm going to click and pull up, and I just picked these numbers. You can change them. 30 inches above the floor. So I just typed in 30, and then I'm going to hit enter. And then it's going to be 12 inches. So do you see how I wasn't on the green axes, and now that I am? So blue, green, and so we want to stay on that green. And we're going to type in 12. And so now I'm 30 up, and I'm 12 inches from the side. So let me just repeat this on this side so you can watch one more time. Click, pull up, make sure I'm on my blue axes, and I'm typing in 30. Now I have my guideline. I'm going to click, and I want to make sure I'm on the green plane. Which I'm not. So that makes me feel like I got off of skew a bit. So let me pan around and see if I got off plane. So I'm going to undo my guide. I'm going to click on my guide. It's green. I'm going up. 30, enter, and then I should be able to go. Interesting, I'm having a little, oh, there is my green. Oh. So the opening is going to be 72 inches wide and 20 inches high. So I can do that with a pencil, or I could do that with the rectangle. So I'm not clicking again. And I really didn't even have to go over here, but I'm starting in this corner, and I'm pulling out on an angle, and I will type in 72, 20, enter. So now you're starting to see what my box is going to look like. Next, select the push tool, the push-pull tool, and instead of pushing, instead of pulling, we're gonna push it back. So if you recall, for those of you following along, I made this 24 inches deep. So I'm gonna push this back 20 inches to create an opening. So you can see I'm pushing it back. I'm not clicking because I'm going to type in 20 and enter. So now I have a fire box. We no longer need the guidelines. So this is where you can go edit and watch. Those are going to go away. Delete guides. On the bottom of page 6, we're going to start creating a mantle. And the mantle is going to be 8 inches above the fireplace opening. And it's going to be 96 inches, the full width wide. So I'll use my guideline tools again. And I'm saying it's going to be 8 inches above there. So I clicked, released, pulled up, and then I'm going to hit 8 on my keyboard and enter. And I might as well just go to this side as well. So now I have a nice line that goes all the way across. And my mantle is going to be 8 inches by 96 inches. It's going to be 8 inches, and basically it's going to go all the way across. So, but I'm just going to stop it here so that you can see what I'll do. So I clicked on the corner. I pulled on a right angle. I did not click again. And I'm going to type in, I don't know if it's, I'm guessing it's 96 first and then 8. Nope. 8, 96. So now I have my rectangle that will be my mantle. Moving to page 7, we're going to select the push tool to select the mantle. So not here, but the mantle. Click, pull out, and then type in 8, enter. So now you have a mantle that's coming out into your space. So if you recall in Photoshop, that when we use the magic wand tool to select an area to receive a material, it had to be enclosed. So if you see right here, our mantle isn't enclosed. So if I wanted this to be stone and this to be wood, they would bleed into each other, right? So what you're going to want to do is I want to place a line right here using the pencil tool. Click, click, to enclose that up because I want the mantle and the fireplace to be a different material. And you want to do that on the other side as well. And you can see I have a funky little angle, and I'm going to have to go in and fix that. So if you saw that it was on a line, so I have to get in there and get in there a little better if I can. Better. And then I'm going to delete my guidelines that I don't need anymore. So you'll see those dashed lines are going to go away. The next task will be the last task that I go over today, and that is we're gonna put a series of windows along here. So I think I have 3. Sometimes I do 5, depending on what I want my room to look like. But we're going to do 1 window, and then you can repeat the steps and just repeat them and do 4 windows across. Or you can draw that same window out here, save it as a group, and then copy it over. So first, let me just draw one on the wall, and then if you want to, you can practice drawing one and then moving it over. So after I go over the window, I will be sure to stop the video, and then I can answer some questions and stay on after class. If students who are familiar with SketchUp and feel comfortable with this, I want you to get all your windows in and your room drawn for next week so we can start adding materials and blocks. For those of you who find this very simple, please you can carry on, and then you can just ask me questions next week. All right, so moving to page 7, we're going to just create a simple window on this wall. And the window is going to measure 8 feet 6 inches high, 36 inches wide, and it's going to be located 48 inches from the corner. So let's go ahead and do our guideline. So it'll snap in the corner, click, drag, lift up my finger, click, lift up my finger, drag along the edge so I'm staying nice and plumb, and I'm going to type in either 48 or 4 feet. So there's my measuring line. Then I'm going to click, release, pull up. I'm on the blue plane. Nice. I'm staying nice and plumb. I'm happy. And I'm going to type in 8 feet, space, 6. Enter. 8 feet 6. 8 feet 6. And when I hover over it, you can see that it's 8 feet 6. Now it's going to be 36 inches wide. Type in either 3 feet or 36. And then you're going to come down. Everything's looking good. I'm on the correct plane. 3 feet or 36 inches. Enter. Click and come down. Feet or 36 inches. Down. And I feel like I need one more. Click and come down. So now I've done my nice grid. I actually find this easier, to tell you the truth, than making one, making it a group, and then copying it over, because I don't know, things just stay a little more plumb. But either way, I've provided instructions for each. Click on the rectangle tool. You have your guidelines. You could have just as well used the pencil tool. I'm going to delete my guidelines. I don't need them anymore. And so now you can see I have these nice spaced openings to create an opening. So I'll introduce you to a new tool, and that's called the offset tool. So most of you have had AutoCAD already. So you're familiar with what an offset tool does. It offsets, in this example, either in or out, the same shape with the measurement that you want. So on the bottom of page 7, you're going to use the offset to offset each frame, and we're going to offset it inward 2 inches. So we select the offset tool. And now I'm having to figure out where my little offset, which one it is. There it is. It's this one. The offset tool. We're going to click inside the rectangle and we're going to drag it in. So you see, I'm dragging it in. And again, don't click, but rather just type in 2, enter. So now I have a frame. Repeat. Pull it in. 2, enter. And so this is just a very simple, just straightforward frame. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just pull those frames out an inch. So again, that's your push-pull tool. We'll probably want to zoom in. To zoom in, I'm rolling. I'm using the roller on my mouse. And the push-pull tool that you've used before, you're going to hover until you select the frame, click, pull it out into the room. You can pull it out a lot, and you just hit 1 for an inch, enter. And if you want this to look like a sliding glass door, maybe you do one that's at 2 inches and then one that's at 1 inch, and it's going to look like a sliding glass door. In this example, they're going to read like windows because they're all going to be the same. So I can either click on the end point or I could type in 1, enter. I'll do the same thing. It reads the end point and it stops, or I could just type in 1, enter. So now I have my windows. And let me just see how long our lesson was today, but it's been about an hour. So this is where I'm ending this lecture. And so this is what I would like students to have completed by next week.